key element of the game is that the game analyses your personality as you play it, and manipulates all sorts of elements in the game, including the story. Then, you know, we're looking to basically make the game more intense, more emotional, more terrifying by anticipating how you might react, basically. So, I mean, the questionnaire is, I think the rest of the game, the way that the game analyses your personality, some of it's more complex, more subtle, but it's important that right up front there's something there that says to the player, we're interested in your personality. Some of the questions make some people uncomfortable, so it's kind of saying, look, you know, your attitude to sex, you know, whether you are extroverted or not, these are things that are going to matter in this game, and we are going to try and play off them. So it's sort of upfront, letting the player know what they're in for, without, you know, if we did it in a more subtle way or complicated way, they might not necessarily get that. So we want to kind of start them off understanding what they're letting themselves in for.
But it's not only the questionnaire, it's how you play.
Yes, yeah. So it's pretty much, as you're playing, we're essentially looking over your shoulder, making notes, analysing your personality.
And sending the information to my doctor, perhaps.
Upload it to Nintendo.
Oh, they already know everything.
Because we wanted to open this up to a much wider audience, to bring in new gamers, lapsed gamers, to play the series. People coming in, we wanted to sort of say to them, you don't need to worry about having played the other 6 or 7 games. This is kind of a fresh start, so you can come into this fresh. And at the same time, for people who have played the series or know more about the series, we wanted to kind of communicate to them that we were sort of going back to the start, rethinking some of the core aspects of the gameplay, sort of reimagining what it means to be a horror game. So we've made many bold decisions in this, changed lots of things which are kind of accepted as being part of a horror game. We believe to make something that's more immersive, more terrifying, more emotional. And I think by saying this is a remake of the very original psychological horror game, kind of saying we are going back, rethinking things. When we first started, we had a few meetings with members from the original team that was still at Konami. We're obviously working with Akira Yamaoka, who's the composer, but he's also been producer on some of the other Silent Hill titles, running things by them. So, you know, when we started, we kind of wanted to understand their aspirations when they created the first game. So it's not like we've taken the game as it stands and then tweaked bits or peeled bits off. We've kind of said, what was the original idea? What was that kind of kernel of an idea? And let's take that and then let's start again with that in the modern day with Wii controls, with what we understand about games now. How can we create something that's very fresh and original horror game?
So what is the essence of a horror game?
Well, I mean, there are 3 things that I think make Silent Hill games different and make them so popular. And that is atmosphere, story, and horror and suspense. And so what we've done with this title is we've said, well, atmosphere. We have these flashlight controls, so the way you control the game is incredibly intuitive and immersive. You just walk around and you choose where to look, you choose which corners to light up. We've eliminated loading, so there's no loading screens. We've removed all of the sub-screens, inventory screens.
So that you're really in there.
So in terms of the atmosphere, because you're so immersed, because it's seamless and organic and you're never kicked out of it, that atmosphere is even more intense. So when we're building up the suspense and the tension, it's that much more intense. And then with the story, we've said, well, what's cool about being a video game? Why would you have a video game story rather than a movie story? And so we said, well, with a horror story, this kind of psychological, emotional story, using this profiling system, we can alter and tweak the story, which is something you can't do in a movie. And then finally, with the horror and the suspense, we've pretty much gone back to the start and we've said, well, what does it mean to be scared? What is terrifying?
Not necessarily the blood which is coming into your face.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at slasher films, if you look at psychological thrillers, you look at horror movies, generally the action element is someone being chased. They're running for their lives. If you think of the nightmares you have as a child, you'd wake up screaming from these nightmares, and there'd be nightmares of you being chased in the dark by formless monsters or something. And So we've tried to take those ideas and put them into a video game. And so in this game, we don't have conventional combat like we would in a horror game. It's not about melee weapons or about guns, eclectic bullets, anything like that. What we do is we throw the player headfirst into this nightmare world, and all the player has to do is escape. He has to run and find the exit from the nightmare. But everything has been built around that idea. So we have this enemy that's very dynamic, that uses sight, sound and smell to hunt you down. The enemy communicates with itself. The enemy will work together to flank you, to cut you off. And then you use the Wiimote controls to fight off the enemies. So the enemies won't sort of stab you or just wave their arms at you like in other horror games. They'll jump onto you and grab you and try and grapple you to the ground. So it's very physical and very tactile. You use the Wiimote controls to throw the enemy off you. So you have this thing where physically your body's getting excited because you're getting involved. Your brain is being triggered by this whole thing of running for your life. And it gets really exciting, really exhilarating. Every time you play through a nightmare sequence, you won't know when the scares are going to happen because the scares are happening because the enemy is smelling you and hunting you down and cutting you off and jumping out the door. So we have this really fantastic dynamic system, which means that the player can't relax, they can't anticipate what's going to happen. So you're always having to kind of remain focused. It means that it's much scarier.
Do you have save points within such a nightmare sequence, or do you have to endure it from A to B?
You pretty much have to get through the whole nightmare.
Okay.
I mean, you can save the game at any point, because we didn't want, again, you know, save points as a way of drawing you out of the game. You're not thinking about exploring, you're thinking about when's the next save point. But essentially, nightmare sequences you have to play through. And what it's about is, think of the atmosphere of dread and suspense in Silent Hill games. Traditionally, it's been about being alone, feeling vulnerable and exposed in this empty, desolate town. And so when we tried to think of the perfect nightmare world that would represent that, we came up with this idea of this icy world that's very cold, inhuman, devoid of life. Everything's frozen in place. So it kind of really plays up on that loneliness and that vulnerableness of the player. There's definitely things in there. If you played the first game, you'll find things that you maybe recognise or think you recognise. But it's very much a fresh experience, and you'll be exploring exciting new places when you play the game. A lot of games have multiple endings. This game essentially has multiple games. So it's not just the ending, it's everything. So you will get to the end of the story and see different things, but you'll have been seeing different things throughout the whole game. One thing we really wanted to do when we made this game was make it a game that you would play, and you would play it all the way through, and that everyone would sit down and get to the end. So if you think traditional horror games will make you hunt for 2 or 3 hours to find a key or something, and we know that that turns people off and throws them out of the game. So in this game, we won't have those frustrating elements. But what we've tried to do is provide as much interesting, exciting, surprising content. So there's lots of stuff that we can't show you that we haven't shown people. Lots of little moments, like you say, really surprising, interesting moments.
Wait for me.
You know, in a horror movie, the night will fall and you'll kind of anticipate that someone's going to die. The bad guy turns up, there's a chase, someone dies, and then you kind of cut to the next day and you kind of relax for a little bit and you learn more about the story, and then the suspense builds. And it has something of that structure, but because the player doesn't know when the ice world is going to come, and it always happens dynamically in the game like this, the player's always going to be sort of suspense, it's always going to be suspenseful, wondering when the ice world is going to come back in. And then as you progress through the game, the ice worlds do have complexities added to them that makes it slightly more complicated than just running to the exit. As well, I think with that one, the story was so distinctive and unique that you'll have to tread very carefully if you were to sort of reimagine that. And I think with Silent Hill 1, because it's been 10 years, because the technology has come on so much, and what you expect from the game, I think it's a great opportunity for a reimagining. An example that I often use of good reimaginings was a classic horror movie, The Fly, by David Cronenberg. And you know, that was based on a black and white horror film. So when he came to it, there was enough sort of cultural difference that he could come up with something very different, very interesting, based on those same concepts. So I think Silent Hill 1 certainly offers us that ability to do something quite unique and fresh, whereas maybe Silent Hill 2 already has strengths that are quite contemporary.